hire for potential, not just credentials. In the startup environment, it's really critical that we're looking for people who are those force multipliers, not the people that just want to stand out and be the rock star, the superstar themselves.
Nicci Arsenault is a top recruitment leader
who has built teams for Google, GitHub, Facebook, and Replicate.
What general tips do you have to people on writing a resume?
You know, I think people often...
Welcome back to Decoded. My name's Alfie Whattam, and this is the show where I speak to experts about what it takes to build great teams and companies. Make sure that you click the follow or subscribe button for more great content like this, and I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Nicci, you've worked with some of the most successful companies in the world, like Google and Facebook and GitHub and Replicate. So what's your number one advice on how to hire truly great people?
Yes, fantastic question. And thank you for that. So first, I would definitely say you have to define with your team, what does great mean? I think at all those companies you just listed, we probably would have defined great differently. And folks make a lot of assumptions jumping in quickly that we would all think great is the same thing, right? And when you're a small team, that might be simple and that might go a lot farther. But as we expand and grow quickly, that can look really different for a lot of different roles. But then just to add on to that slightly, I would say truly my number one advice in all those situations would be hire for potential, not just credentials. I think some of the best people I've worked for, and even myself included, when I was just starting out, I definitely did not have the flashiest resume, but I definitely had that drive to grow. I had the grit. I wanted to learn and have that ability to make those around me better. And I think in the startup environment, it's really critical that we're looking for people who are those force multipliers, not the people that just want to stand out and be the rock star, the superstar themselves. So really looking for those types of folks in the startup space.
Yeah, certainly. Especially like oftentimes we try and hire the unicorn, the perfect person.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's very hard to find, and sometimes it's impossible. But if we do find them, oftentimes they'll leave pretty quickly because there's nothing for them to learn. There's no way for them to grow. Like you want to find somebody that has that potential, but maybe he's like 80, 90% there are the skills, because then they've got something to work on and like a reason to stay involved. And I love your earlier point around actually defining what great and what good looks like, because oftentimes we don't put it down on paper. We have a job description from 3 years ago. We don't actually like sit down and really work out with the hiring manager or with the team like what is super critical here. Oftentimes that does differ role to role, but like there are some common things which I'm sure that you look for across all candidates. Are there any examples of like one or two, three, like specific things which, regardless of what job you're hiring, like that's an important thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think two things definitely come to mind here. I would say back to that point around grit. So just that ability to take ownership is really, really important in the startup environment. Regardless of level, we want to see people who are willing to jump in and say, even if I'm C-suite or even if I'm entry level and I see a problem and identify it, I'm not just going to go and complain about it. I'm going to identify it. I'm going to come up with solutions. I'm going to find people, if it's not myself with the skill set, I'm going to find people to help me solve it. So really that ability to take ownership. And then secondly, in the startup environment, it's got to be flexibility. We're changing constantly, whether that's quarter to quarter, whether that's just a sprint, a project, a product launch, or even a people program we're launching that could also just change on a dime. So really that ability to be flexible and not freak out when things change, but just know it's par for the course. It's actually part of the job, literally. So just being able to be agile and know that it's not a big deal when things change. It really is what we should expect in the function. And at this point in the cycle of a startup and in a job, whether that's, seed, series A, B, C, you're going to always need that flexibility regardless of level. So I would probably say those two things.
I would echo those points exactly. You need to have the grit. You need to have the willingness to work super hard. But, you also have to be open to change. You can't just be rigid and stubborn and stuck in your beliefs. You're absolutely right. Okay, so what's a common mistake that you see people make when hiring? You've helped people hire hundreds of people probably across your career.
Yeah.
Like, what are the things that people consistently get wrong and they make this mistake and it prevents them from getting the right people in their team?
Yeah, another great question. I mean, yeah, at one point, I think at Facebook early on, I wasn't even on the recruiting team and I was doing like 25 interviews a week. So it was definitely heavy interviewing. There are two or three I do see consistently, even now at startups. Um, there are three big ones. So I would say one is moving too fast. So making a decision after either one great conversation or one really bad conversation.
Mm.
Either that's from a pressure to fill a role really quickly, or just that unconscious bias of this person is really similar to me and I had a great conversation, but the conversation wasn't even about the job. It was
Yeah, yeah.
because you both really like the same workout or you both really like to vacation in the same city. So really being able to move quickly, but with process in place. So that leaves me to my second one. Again, in the startup space, of course, we're going to come into situations where no real process has been in place, but not going so far that we're in a place where we do complete vibes-based hiring. So again, to your point earlier, of course, the requirements are going to change from candidate to candidate and role to role, especially based on seniority or where we're at in the growth stage of a startup, but really being able to have some type of process in place. And then I would say, third, kind of back to my original point, only hiring people just like you. That's obviously going to get us to a place where we lean way too far into unconscious bias. So really just being aware, we all have it, myself included. So really just being able to check ourselves throughout a conversation or with our peers, which is why, some level of process is important even in the startup space. So just kind of to clearly lay out those points, I would say one, moving too fast without any type of process. Two, having something in place, even if it's a bit of a skeleton, if you're really a brand new startup. And three, making sure we're not only hiring people just like us. Obviously, we're going to bring in referrals, right? We're going to bring in great people that we've worked with before, but just being really sure that we're hiring from a diverse pool of candidates so we can ultimately create the best product or whatever it is our company's trying to build.
Yeah, certainly. Like, we advise all of our customers to, yes, look at culture fit, but look at culture add. Like, you're not just wanting to build a team of people that look and sound and think exactly
Right.
like you, or the diversity brings unique perspectives to the product and to the service and to the
Right.
way that you do business. So it can be a superpower if it's done properly. And
Right.
you need to think about, how do you add to the culture? How do you make it better and constantly changing and evolving it? It goes back to your earlier point on flexibility, really. But
Right.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think the most important part of what we do, apart from finding great people, is just delivering a really positive candidate experience. And it's
Yeah.
not something that people often think about. They've
Mhm.
got so much pressure to fill these roles, and it can be small things like not giving candidates feedback, or I've
Yeah.
seen it go very very wrong when other extremes happen. But how do you ensure a great candidate experience? What's important to you when it comes to this?
Yeah, I completely agree. I've seen the whole spectrum as well. And I think what's important to remember here is, again, depending on budget, but a great candidate experience doesn't have to be about bells and whistles. I mean, it can be, but ultimately, to me, it's about clarity, respect, and treating everybody like humans.
Mm,
Um, I think of process as basically foundation, as scaffolding. It doesn't have to be a cage when you're on the people or HR side of the business. We're really here to, you know, open that up. We want to empower the business. So I think about adding just enough structure to stay consistent. And so that's how I think about employee experience. I don't know about you, but I've certainly been on the receiving end of a poor candidate experience where I've been ghosted, right? Or I've been left out of the loop and I don't know what happened. Did I do something wrong? I want that feedback too. So it's not just about good hiring, it's about basic decency. So that's how I try to think about it when I'm on the hiring end of things. So really just ensuring we're being transparent where we can. We're always closing the loop. If I come into a new startup and I see that we've had a backlog queue of, 600, 700 candidates and they never got a response, that's definitely something I want to identify immediately and figuring out what tools do we have in our toolbox to identify that. But truly at the end of the day, just being honest about the chaos, letting people know where we're at in our process. And again, just treating them with human decency and letting them know that we need to close the loop.
mean, that's what it comes down to, right? The fundamentals, keeping
Yeah.
people informed quickly, giving them honest and transparent feedback, not lying to them, not trying to trick them, or using some kind of
Yeah.
psychological. I've seen
Ugh.
horrible things happen where people advertise a position as this salary and then they will lowball people, or I've seen fake jobs just to try and get people's interest and attention. And then I've seen the other extreme of companies trying to do all those bells and whistles, and there's some really cool, amazing stuff, whether that's like great perks and benefits to paying people time for them actually doing the interview, like if it's a coding
Yep.
challenge, like compensate. I think that's great, but you can do all of that. But if you don't have the fundamentals in place,
Right.
in terms of speed of feedback, in terms of honesty and consistency and reliability, if you don't have that, then none of the extra fancy stuff even matters, to be honest.
Right, right. And I mean, I'm a person that wants real talk at the end of the day. And I think if, to your point exactly, if we don't have that, people want that more than perfection, right? They just want to be treated with decency. So back to your point, you have to have the foundation first before everything else.
This is a quick message to tell you about my company, Alpha AI. We built Lisa, the world's first AI powered recruiter who screens candidates for you on autopilot. You can make your recruitment process 10 times faster, 90% lower cost, and significantly improve the candidate experience, all with our AI agent for hiring. Learn more at welovealpha.com or click the link below in the description. And now, back to the episode.
Well, one thing that I'm quite excited about, which can solve a lot of these problems around human bias, around candidates getting ghosted, it is the rise of AI in hiring, and that's kind of why I'm building in this space. But
Yeah.
I fundamentally don't think AI will replace recruiters, but I do believe a recruiter using AI will certainly replace one who doesn't, and that's kind of my mantra and belief. But what are your thoughts? Do you agree? Do you think we should be embracing this? Do you think we should be scared by it and fight it and ignore it? What's your view on this?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I don't think AI will replace recruiters, but recruiters who ignore AI may replace themselves. That's kind of how I
Yeah.
think about it. So the way I'm using it and thinking about it is exactly right. AI isn't here to replace recruiters, but a recruiter who knows how to utilize AI well will definitely outperform those who are refusing to kind of move forward with it, right? And utilize it in their day-to-day tasks and shift it into their tooling. So the way I'm using it with my teams, right, we're not removing it from the human part of the jobs, right? We still need to interact with candidates and create that amazing candidate experience. But I do think it can help us raise the bar for what a great experience can be like, all the way from top of funnel to making an offer. And then same thing for the hiring managers, right? How can we help them save time? And how can we help them make a more consistent experience? Because they're usually not the recruiting experts as
Mm.
well. So how can we help train them up, right? And help them be more efficient with their time with us as well. So I do think we should be embracing AI thoughtfully, and not blindly or fearfully, but really use it to take the busy work off of our plates.
Exactly. Like recruitment is about building deep relationships with
Hmm.
people, and that's how you close them. That's how you get them involved with the
Right.
company. And AI, it might do that one day, but right now it certainly can't do that. But what it can do is it can do all of your admin work better than you can. It can do it faster. It can do it cheaper, and it can free up your time so you can spend more time on the important
Right.
activities which matter, like building those relationships and closing candidates and making sure that you're speaking to the right people about the right things at the right time. So yeah, I'm
Right.
fully on board with you. Okay, so a few months ago, you posted, I think it was on LinkedIn, you said that your new mantra was big, calm energy, which I love this concept. I certainly get that vibe as well, but tell me about this.
Yeah, so that was my mantra wrapping up last year. I try to do one every year that kind of incorporates, professional and personal life, because to me they do blend quite a bit. I was winding down a company. We were, fully breaking it up. I was in the Web3 space, so we were fully decentralizing, which was really exciting and really challenging for me as a people leader. I also had two very young kids, So there's chaos there, as one can imagine. So I was really trying to focus all of that energy into a proper space, and just navigating a lot of those different emotional and logistical changes. So that phrase was keeping me grounded, almost like a North Star. And then this year, kind of trying to shift that energy, I've updated my mantra a little bit. And so right now I'm thinking about kind of what we talked about at the top of the call, actually. So my mantra this year now is grow with grit, lead with heart, and move with balance. And so as a people leader, I'm really trying to think of those things. I'm in a new AI startup. We're growing, it's shifting, all the things we just talked about as well, but continuing to lead with that purpose. With heart as a people leader and with intention. So back to building again for sure.
Cool. I can relate. I have two young kids myself, a 2 month old and a 2 year old. So yeah,
Oh, real
chaos.
young. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. I completely get it. But chaos, but also a good chaos at the same time.
Absolutely.
Okay, I didn't have these questions on our agenda. I wanted to ask you, since we've got a little bit
Sure.
of time left.
Yeah.
What about other candidate sides? That we've talked about advice for companies on how to hire, but what about advice for people searching for jobs? Like you've reviewed thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of resumes. Yeah, you're like getting flashbacks right now. Too
Yeah.
many, Alfie.
Like,
Yeah, yeah. What are some things that are good that stand out? What are some things that are maybe not so good? Like what general tips do you have to people on writing a resume? Are there like one or two or three things which consistently come up to you, which make you say yes or make you say no? What sort of advice would you give on that side of the coin?
yeah, that's a great question. I think people often, I do think, obviously crisp and punchy resumes are helpful, but I believe oftentimes people leave out really interesting details about their life outside of work. Um, for example, in my family, I have a lot of ex-military. I think that like those types of things are actually very relevant to the tech industry. And I think oftentimes people shy away from that if they don't think it is, exactly relevant to the work they're trying to do. But I think if you have leadership skills or you have these really fascinating experiences that may not tie exactly to the role you're applying for, they can actually be incredibly powerful. Because I know as a people leader in this space, I'm always looking for diversity of backgrounds. And that doesn't just mean, gender or, what country you're from or things like that. It can absolutely mean experience in different spaces because to me, that creates a very well-rounded team, like we spoke about earlier. So I would say don't be shy about really being proud of these different experiences, but also being able to speak to it and tie it back to why it's so relevant to the role you're applying for. I find that stuff very fascinating, and I think oftentimes people shy away from it.
Yeah, people can relate to people that they know and like, and they have that similar thing in common, and it paints out the picture a little bit more. It's like you might have a
Yeah,
hundred CVs that say Python and TypeScript, and that's cool. But like, what about
right.
the? Okay, I was in the military. Oh, this person was too. Okay, let's have a chat. So, and obviously, you don't want to just do hiring based on that, as we talked about earlier. But it can help get your foot in the door certainly, and help you land that interview.
Right, right. And it can speak to just the, different layers that people bring to the table.
Mm. What about if that's successful and they get the interview? What are sort of one or two, three bits of advice you'd give to somebody going for an interview? Like, are there any things that you see people do and they fail consistently? Or are there any things that you see which help them stand out and get the job? What are sort of your general advice areas on interviewing?
Yeah, definitely. I think areas where I do see people consistently kind of miss the mark in the early interviewing stage would be just lack of awareness around why they want to be in that role and why they want to be at that company. I know sometimes, maybe the market can be challenging and people really are just looking like it's a numbers game and they really are just looking to maybe get in anywhere, but really trying to connect the experience with why they want to be at this role and why now in their career. I find that connection always really interesting. I'm never one that judges about why do you have this gap in your timeline or why did you leave this company? Like I've been in the tech industry for almost 20 years. My resume is also, non-linear. It goes all over the place. I'm more interested in that storytelling piece. So really being crisp around crisp and proud about this is my story and this is why it's gone this direction and this is why now this role in this company makes sense in my timeline and in my journey. So I think getting that down really well goes a long way.
Mm, mm. Oftentimes it can be hard when you're applying for so many jobs to kind of almost keep track of what's happening with which company in different areas. But one thing I found really well to just stand out from the pack is when you're communicating why specifically you're applying for that role, is do some good research on the business, like look into what they do, like look into all the press,
Yep.
look into the founders, look, research the interviewers that you're speaking with. I had one back when I was a recruiter. I had one candidate who I sent for a position, and they really wanted the job. They prepared a slide deck and a video about why they thought they were the right person for the position, and then they emailed that to the hiring manager just before the interview, and they watched it. And this is incredible. I looked at 500 resumes.
Yeah.
No one sent me a follow-up email. This person sent me a 5 minute video on why they think they're the right fit with custom slides and everything. It went the extra mile. They might not have even been the best candidate for the job, but they got the position. They were offered way more than what they were expecting. And it's just like these little things really become the big things. And it really helps you stand out from everybody else. But the best way to do that is to go back to what you said, like, why do you want to work for that company? And craft a story that sells you on the perfect fit for that problem.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know about you, but certainly when I've interviewed for roles, I know when I am like meant for a role
Yeah,
versus I'm just interviewing to get the practice in, right? Like
yeah,
there are very few roles I've interviewed for that I know I'm meant for where I have not received an offer.
yeah.
Like when I lock in, I'm like, I am meant for this job. And I think people can relate to that. And there's an energy and there's a vibe and there's like an emotional connection. So if you really feel like you are meant for that role, I completely agree with you in that person's experience. Like I've received handwritten thank yous and I remember that candidate.
Yeah,
Like how
yeah.
many times have you received a handwritten thank you these days, right? It's above and beyond and you remember that person forever.
Yeah, like people don't remember what you say or even what you did. They remember how you make them feel. And
Absolutely.
like you need the logic to get the job. You need the hiring manager, the
Yeah.
recruiter to go A, B, and C, A, B, and C. Okay, great. But like that's not gonna get you the position. It's the emotion that ultimately, does the unlock. So you need both, but people forget about the emotional side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Nicci, this has been super useful, not only for people just then that are looking for jobs, but also people that are hiring and anybody working in tech in general. If people have enjoyed this and they want to learn more, where should they go now? Should they is it your LinkedIn, your X, or the company's careers page? Where do you want to direct people to?
Yeah, LinkedIn would be great. I think that's a good call. And then my linkedin.com/nichebomb is where I'm at. And then I also have a personal website too, that we can direct people to, and that's risefromhere.com.
Okay.
So that's where you can contact me directly.
Is this a blog that you write on hiring, or what is the content?
It's my consulting site. So
Okay,
that's where
awesome.
you'll find like podcasts like this,
Okay,
any content I have about my personal work, coaching sessions, things like that.
amazing. Cool. Nicci, thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you.
Thank you. This was great. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you click the follow or subscribe button wherever you're watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Introducing Lisa, the world's first AI-powered recruiter. She's an AI agent who works 24/7, screening candidates on autopilot, conducting interviews in 30 different languages, uploading all the best candidates to your applicant tracking system. Hire 10 times faster at 90% lower cost and significantly improve the candidate experience. Visit welovealpha.com to start your free trial now.